Alright. Hi guys, it's Megan, and recently I finally got around to watching Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared 6, which is the grand finale to a web series that is dark and creepy called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. If you don't like horror and that kind of stuff, I wouldn't recommend watching it, but I'm leaving the link in the description below in case you do before you watch this video, which would be the best way to go considering it's a theory about the videos. Okay, anyway, I'm rambling. So my theory revolves around Roy, the yellow guy's dad, and that he is behind all of this, which is a very common theory, very, very common theory, so allow me to explain it deeper. So, proof of this is, it's very faint and very quick, but you can see Roy in the background watching the yellow guy in almost every video, in every single one. I think except the first one. I don't think he's in the first one, from what I've seen. Now, he's hidden in different areas, so this is what leads me to believe he is an overprotective, overbearing parent. Now, this is where he gets a little obsessive. He wants the yellow guy to think just like him and be just like him. So all the educational protagonists, so like the clock or the notepad or the lamp in the very last one, they all represent Roy trying to teach the yellow guy different lessons. But I think the yellow guy thinks a lot differently than Roy. And that's why Roy gets more intense and more intense for each lesson. A good example of this is, well, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I noticed that when the yellow guy dies per se, or is dying, he tends to look a little bit more like Roy, but maybe that's just something I personally saw. I don't know. So now where do the green guy, the bird, and the red guy come in? Well, I think the red guy is the yellow guy's friend, obviously, and gets involved with these lessons, and so does the bird. So, but more into the red guy's story. So I think the red guy has a very common, boring, regular life and has never been taught these lessons about creativity and that kind of stuff. So that is why he's very confused at first. I mean, they all are, but he seems to be a little bit more confused and set back and withdrawn than the rest of them. So, but eventually he warms up and becomes more curious and wants these lessons, and he wants to know them because he doesn't want to end up just like a normal, regular person. This really shows in the last video when you see him working with tons of other people just like him, and you see him saying like, I am a file, you put documents in me, that kind of thing. So he wants to see that magic and that kind of stuff, but the yellow guy doesn't because he thinks a different way. You also see him trying to perform the first song about creativity to the rest of his group of not friends but peers, let's say. And I think that's very symbolic because he's talking about creativity because in his world he doesn't see any creativity. He sees the same and the same and the same. Now, deeper onto the creativity episode. Well, at first you see Roy, or I'm going to say it's Roy, or the animated object trying to teach the three friends about creativity. And at first they're going along and going along, but when the yellow guy says his favorite color is green, Roy immediately says, or the notebook immediately says, no, green's not a creative color. This is the first example of the yellow guy thinking differently and Roy rejecting it. So then you see him pushing the right kind of creativity onto the yellow guy, like the clown painting. He coats in black because he's going too fast, which doesn't really make sense. So then you keep seeing it get darker and darker and darker as Roy gets more intense trying to change the yellow guy's way of thinking. Now, let's talk about the green guy. I think the green guy is very clever, very creative, and has always been a creative person, unlike the red guy who got more creative over time, and the yellow guy who might be creative just in a different way. But I think the bird has had different thoughts, and very clever, deep thoughts all his life, because you see him grasping at some of the lessons but rejecting others and that kind of stuff. And I think because he rejects some of it, Roy gets a little bit nervous because he's not accepting all of it, and he thinks that the yellow guy is going to start not accepting all of it. So he realizes that he needs to get rid of the two friends because they're dangerous, because they have thoughts too, and he wants the yellow guy not to be like his friends, to be like Roy. So you see this during the computer a lot, with the computer episode, because you see at first the teacher, the lesson, the little character starts to be the globe. That's what they're all looking at. And this shows all of them looking for information, wanting more lessons, as they all want more lessons. And you see the globe as they're looking for, oh, I wish I could know more about the world and that kind of stuff. So they're asking the globe. And I think Roy sees that, and the computer represents him barging in and saying, no globe. He wants him to teach the kids, or specifically his kid, not anyone else. And the yellow guy gets a little confused, but they all kind of go along for a bit, except you see the red guy start to rebel first, because you can see him being like, stop talking, shut up, and then eventually he touches him, and which is supposed to mean him trying to turn the computer off or trying to shut down Roy's lesson because he doesn't think it's right. And then immediately the computer makes a noise like, don't touch me, that kind of stuff. So, and later it shows that the red guy gets killed. Now, you see his head blown off and that kind of stuff. So, I assume, this is getting really dark, so warning, really dark. So I assume that Roy either shot him in the head or something like that to get him away from the yellow guy. Now, the next episode is about food and healthy food. And this one is, the main person focused in this one is the green guy, the bird. Because the bird is the first to notice that the red guy is missing, or something is missing. Like, the yellow guy says something's different, but the bird notices that something's missing, not just different. Something that's very different about the food episode is that there are two teachers. Now, the steak guy seems very violent and very angry and very, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And the soup can seems a little more explanatory, like just trying to explain everything. Now, if you notice in that video, in the 5th one, the soup can, the happier, friendlier seeming one, is more geared towards the yellow guy, while the angry, hateful one, the steak guy, is geared towards the bird, and eventually leads the bird to... He keeps confusing the bird, and the yellow guy kind of looks around like very confused the whole time, but the bird speaks out against it, like, this doesn't make sense, that's wrong. So eventually the bird is killed, and you see a can of something eating him alive, quote unquote. So this leads me to believe he was poisoned of some sort, whether, I don't know how, but he was. And it ate him alive. So this leads to the very final one. And in this episode, I think that the red guy came back. Like, he survived the headshot, or whatever happened to him. Somehow he survived. And now, since he was shot, or whatever happened to him, since he was attempted to be killed, he knows that Roy is up to something that's not good. So he lives his everyday life until he sees Roy. That's when you see him like fade out, and then he's in this room, which is dark and got a checkered floor and that kind of stuff. I think this is him finding Roy's plans and everything that's Roy's doing, and you see him trying to shut it down by pressing different things, and he ends up just confusing the yellow guy, who at this point is rejecting every sort of song, every sort of lesson, everything that Roy is trying to get him to think about. The red guy tries to shut it down and tries to shut it down and tries to shut it down, and you see Roy come up to him and touches him. And at this point, I guess this theory doesn't really make sense, because he's very tender-handed. Does that make sense? He's not trying to kill the red guy, but he does seem to point towards the computer like he's trying to fix it and trying to get the yellow guy to think he's trying. It makes it known that Roy is in charge of the machine that the red guy was trying to shut down. Now you see, while Roy is approaching the machine trying to get it back to normal, you see the red guy go over to the plug, which could mean a lot of different things, but he pulls the plug, and all of a sudden they're totally different. One thing to notice is that it's very hard to catch, but they are their favorite colors from the first episode. So this leads you to believe it's some sort of, maybe not paradise, but idealistically what they would want, because they are their favorite colors and that sort of thing. And it looks like they're just swapped, but they are their favorite colors, which makes a lot of difference, because this is what I think believes that the red guy and the yellow guy got killed in some way that day. Whether, I don't know what happened. I don't really have any predictions for this, except maybe the red guy found out he couldn't shut what Roy was doing down, so he took their lives and that kind of stuff. But I don't know, but it's obvious they're probably in some sort of heaven or some sort of that, because then you see the calendar, which is always displayed June 19th. It now changes to June 20th, and I think this represents them moving on or something like that. Now, this could be totally wrong. I will never know, but that is my theory, because we can't really see what goes on in the creators' brains, but that's my guess. I've seen also theories where it represents them growing up, it represents the media, it represents a lot of different things. So let me know what your theories are down in the comments. Seriously, I want to start a conversation about this web series, because I think it's really cool, and it's really dark, but I think it's got deeper meanings. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that theory. I don't know, you don't have to agree with it. You can, and you can give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you want to see more of my videos, you can click subscribe down below. And that's all. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Like I said, in previous videos, I can't guarantee a whole lot because of this mess of unpacking and packing and all that stuff, but I will try to film a video next week. Also, once everything gets packed, I'm going to be filming a house tour, because I know a lot of people wanted to see that.